Well, hi, everybody. We're here today with Ashley Rescot. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, Dina. Thanks so much
Hi.
for having me
Sure.
today.
Glad to have you. And we're just going to jump right into this interview, just learning a little bit about you and your family. So tell us what you want us to know.
Yes. Well, I am the oldest of five sisters, and I grew up in a musical family. My grandmother is a musician and author. She plays piano and accordion and organ. She actually still does play the piano. She's in her 90s,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
she's a children's book author, and she's still writing. Um, then my mother is a professional violinist and vocalist. And all four of my sisters are musicians as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
So,
I love that.
yeah.
I kind of grew up in a little bit of a musical family, not quite as much as you, but as kids, we would sit around and play. We had a guitar, piano, drums, spoons, whatever.
Oh, fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
so great
Yes.
memories. So I'm
Oh,
sure you
that's
have great
cool.
memories too. Yeah,
I
so
do. That's inspiration for my writing. And now
well,
I have two children, and one of them's a 6-year old. She's played piano for 2 years now.
awesome. Well, that's what I was getting ready to
And then
ask you too, your inspiration. Go ahead. Go ahead with what you're going to say.
oh, and I was going to say, and my 2-year-old boy, we have fun doing a music class where we sing and play percussion.
Yeah, that's great. And music is such a wonderful gift and a blessing from the Lord. So I'm sure y'all really enjoy
Definitely.
that. And I was going to ask about your inspiration for you write music fiction. So,
Yes. So everyone says to write what you know, and I'm always impressed with the authors who can kind of branch out into other areas that maybe aren't their expertise. But at this stage in my career, music is what I know, and so I write about that. I've actually created like a fictional university where my characters attend school, and so all of my short stories and my novel take place there.
oh, that's
So
cool.
drawing from my music life.
Very creative. I like that. So, what
Thanks.
kind of challenges do you face with writing this genre?
Yes. Well, because it's kind of a genre in a certain sense that I've made up more or less. So that's a bit of the challenge, although you can still technically find performing arts under some of your categories, and it could be like young adult performing arts or children's performing arts. So it's not completely a made up category, but music fiction is definitely not one of the typical ones, advertised on Amazon or some of the other
Right.
retailers. So that's been a little bit tricky. And especially when I was thinking about publishers, I had a harder time thinking about which specific publisher would I fit with. Um, and so that's a big reason I went independent publishing, is because I thought this way I can kind of mold it to this, tailor it to this audience. I really am writing with music lovers and
Hmm.
musicians in mind.
Yeah.
So yes, I kind of had to tailor my own audience and look for especially like music teachers and students that are interested in reading these stories.
Yeah.
So
Good. Good for you. Going indie publishing. I know a lot of people are doing that these days and doing very well at that. So I wish you the best in that too.
yeah,
So
thank
talk a
you.
little bit about how you incorporate Christ and hope and biblical uh, themes into your stories.
Right. Well, I think what's interesting as a musician is that we have the gamut. We have everything from very conservative musicians who play at church. I love to perform at my church. That's where I perform the most, and I'm one of their vocal soloists and violinists. And I really feel like we can minister a lot as musicians. And I'm training my students in my violin studio to do the same. But then you also have a lot of non-Christian musicians that they either didn't grow up in the faith or maybe they've turned away from Christianity. And so I still wanted my books to be accessible to them. So it's not as heavy on the biblical principles. It incorporates them kind of under the surface level, but
Hmm.
I'm not quite as in your face because I'm
Right.
trying to make sure that I can reach some of those musicians that maybe aren't getting it from church as well. But for example, at the end of my short story collection, I have a short story where an elderly professor is dying and his student plays the Psalm 23 for him because that's such a a very comforting psalm for a lot of people, especially when they're going through hard times. And she's a harpist. And so he's like, oh, I remember the great composer David, great King David, who was a harpist. And it's kind of trying to bring him back in that
Oh,
sense to his faith. And as so I kind of plant little biblical references, especially in the short stories. I'm a little more overt in my novel, about my characters going to
mhm.
church and looking to their faith. I also have the mom character as a very strong Christian influence on her daughters in my novel. And she kind of is their spiritual leader in a certain sense. And in my life, that's definitely been the case. My mom and dad have both been strong Christian
Mhm.
leaders for me.
Yeah.
So again, it's not as overt as some, but I'm trying to still like make it accessible to my non-Christian musician readers as well, and
Yeah.
kind of to show them, like King David was a composer, he was a musician, but he was also a man of after God's own heart.
Mhm.
So,
Very cool.
mhm.
So, are your stories inspired by true events or personal history in some way?
Yes, there's the joke. What is it? Don't make enemies with an author, or you might end up in their books.
Yeah.
So, of
Yeah.
course, the official characters are fictional, but a lot of my stories have elements of truth. So, like in the short stories, I drew a lot from little snippets of my life in college as a music major. For example, in one of the stories, one of the characters drops his glasses in the ocean and he has to perform for concerts. And that did happen to one of my friends.
Oh,
He literally did drop his glasses on an orchestra trip to the beach,
oh
and we
gosh.
had to figure out what to do on on how to help him perform the concert.
Yeah.
In my upcoming novel, it has five sisters in it. So, of course, that was inspired by my sisters. We're all best friends. Now, in the novel, they don't start out as best friends, but you kind of see their relationship
Yeah.
evolve over the course of the story. So, I wouldn't say it's a one-to-one parallel to my sisters, but it's more the collective Little Women feel is really what I was going for in my novel,
Yeah.
of showing kind of a 21st century Little Women.
Yeah. That
That's what we
sounds
thought of
fun.
as ourselves growing up.
I
Yeah.
bet. I bet. I don't have any sisters, so I'm sure that was a lot
Oh,
of fun. I have one brother.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. He's the best. So you have a busy life and with your music and everything you have going on. I heard you mention a studio and with church.
Mhm.
So how do you fit in your writing time? Do you write every day or do you have a certain schedule?
So it's tricky, especially at this stage in my life as a mom with little ones. One of them's in kindergarten, the other one he is at home with me all day.
Mhm.
So I just kind of have to do it when I can fit it in. So sometimes that means I'm sitting in the car writing on Google Docs on my phone, while I'm waiting, for my husband to go to the hardware store. He's a tool guy. Other times it's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, and I'm like, okay, honey, you take over the kids, and I kind of hide in my bedroom for a couple of
Right.
hours and crank it out. I
Mhm.
usually have more of a weekly goal in terms of my writing as opposed to daily. The weekly tends to work better for me. So that way, if things come up in my family life or my music life, it's okay. But then as long as I have that kind of trying to get, maybe it's a chapter done that week or something like that, then finding some time where I can maybe go to a coffee shop or hide in my bedroom to
Yeah.
to knock it out.
So how long did
Yeah.
it take you to write your novel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think like a lot of authors, I had various versions of it in the past.
Yeah.
I I wrote a version of it that was way more autobiographical in college, and then I tried another kind of version of it a few years ago, and just nothing was sticking. My story structure, to be honest, wasn't very good. And then I tried it as like a middle grade, and again, a lot of experimentation. Then I got pregnant with my son, and I just kind of put all those versions, off to the
Yeah.
side. Then a couple of years ago, I found the podcast KM Wyland. I think I've
Oh
seen you
yeah.
follow her as
Oh
well.
yeah.
And she was really the inspiration for me to be like, okay, this is where I was struggling. I'm going to tackle these plot issues. So I started again from ground zero 2 years ago. And it took me a year to get that first draft written,
Hmm.
using her story structure. And so, yeah, it took a year for that first draft. And then
Hmm.
I contacted my developmental editor, and worked on some of those edits. And now I just turned it into my copy editor yesterday.
Yeah,
So, and
awesome.
for hopefully a fall release. Yeah,
Yeah, so you are a plotter? You
I
plot out?
am.
Okay.
Yes. It
I
still evolves. I've noticed as a plotter, it still changes, but
yeah.
I do try to plot it.
Yeah, when I try to plot, I plot it out and then I start writing and it never sticks to that plot. I was like,
I
okay,
know.
I just wasted my time doing that.
I know.
So it
I
doesn't
know. That's
work.
the thing. It still evolved for me anyway after the
Yeah.
fact. But, and because
So,
ACFW, I've loved our group that I know we're both part of. Sorry. And so I know sometimes I would change things based on feedback from,
oh
our
yeah.
fellow
Oh yeah.
critique
The
partners.
critique
And
partners.
so,
Yeah, you have to
yes.
know which advice to take and which to leave behind, and that can be tricky.
Yes. Yes.
So, what do you feel like God has been teaching you through your writing?
Well, I think the big thing was, first of all, to write. I really have liked my focus in my profession to be more on my music. I also have been a French teacher, and writing was kind of more the thing I would do therapeutically, if that makes any sense. So I
Mhm.
kind of associated writing with like maybe harder times in my life. And for some reason, a couple of years ago, I just really felt like God was saying that you're supposed to write this, and this is part of what I have in plan for you, and you need to trust me on this one. I know
Mhm.
that maybe sounds funny, but
No.
just learning to trust, like, okay, it doesn't always make sense. It may be, maybe I want to be doing something else or performing or whatever, but I just really felt kind of it on my heart, especially to try to reach the music community, because there's a lot of pain and struggle going
Mhm.
on. And I started this process before the pandemic, but since then I've really followed a lot of musicians, and there's been, obviously it's disrupted every industry, but it's been a big blow to a lot of them. And this, I feel like, is a way I can have a ministry to try
Mhm.
to bring kind of hope, to some of them whose careers have been affected. So I would
Yeah.
say that's the biggest thing, is just learning to trust him when he puts that kind of call on your heart, that I think a lot
Mhm.
of writers, we feel that.
Yeah.
And so, and then obviously patience, the fact that it's taking 2 years to publish, and not even to mention,
Mhm.
those multiple drafts from the
Oh yeah.
past.
Oh yeah, lots of
So
patience.
lots of patience.
Well, and you kind of semi-answered, I think, my next question about what you hope your readers are going to take away from the book. So you're really gearing to the music community.
And people who enjoy music. Obviously, I hope it can reach people who are music aficionados. But really, I feel like on my heart, it's to reach those musicians and to kind of bring hope, and ideally to show them, uh, to show them the Lord, or if they're already Christians, to kind of encourage them in
Hmm.
in their walk.
So
hmm
tell us a little about your novel, what it's called, A Change of Tune. Is
A
that the
change
title?
in
All
tune.
right, tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that and some of the characters. Which characters were easy to write or what challenges, in the book?
Yes. So, well, again, it's featuring five sisters, because that's always, like I said, we wanted to be the modern Little Women, and I always wanted to write the next version of Little Women in a certain sense. But I have based overall nine characters, the five girls, and then there's four boys around that, kind of teenage stage or early 20s. I guess a lot of them are in their 20s. And so they're actually based off the Enneagram types. And so this time, my oldest, she's an Enneagram 1. And so she is actually she was my hardest to write, probably. And she is the protagonist, which was a bit rough. I talked to my developmental editor. I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know if I should have started with one of the easier types, but type 1 made sense for an oldest child, although I am the oldest child and I'm not an Enneagram 1. But she's very much perfectionist. She wants her life to, follow this path exactly. She wants to move to New York to play at a big conservatory there, again, that I made up. But and obviously life sometimes goes that way, and sometimes there's challenges along the way. And she's a little bit of a tough cookie. She's not always nice to her second sister, who's an Enneagram 4, so very artsy. She plays viola, so there's this like rivalry between sisters, rivalry between violinists and violists. We got a love triangle going on because they both like this cellist, he's my leading man, is Jerry Chang, the cellist, the first chair cellist. And so he was a lot easier to write. He's kind of a more accessible character, I guess. He's my Enneagram 3, the performer, the suave, kind of charmer. But
Mhm.
I did like that my developmental editor suggested for the romance genre to put some of the story from his perspective. So I rewrote a lot of scenes from Jerry's perspective. And actually, I think that added a lot more heart to my story.
Mhm.
So I liked that she had made that suggestion.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was easier. But yeah, the leading lady was a bit tougher. And then a lot of the sisters I had a ball with. The second sister, the rival, Adrian, she's a rough one in the first half, but then you see in the second half she starts to grow as well. And really her story will be fleshed out more in what I'm hoping will be the second book in the series. She'll be
Yeah.
the main character and we'll see more of her journey there.
So, how many books do you have planned for this series?
So I'm hoping to do 5 so that each of the
One.
sisters can be the protagonist.
Yeah,
And the
that's what I was
littles, they're
thinking.
a lot of fun too. Yeah. So I've got the third character, Marie. She was probably my easiest to write. She's a sweetheart and everybody relates pretty well to her. She's the cook and she's always baking and pretty go with the flow. So yeah, she was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
So, have you
mhm.
started working on the next one?
I've started a little bit of notes and a little bit of outlining. The next one will take place partly in Paris.
Oh,
Adrian's a big Parisian fan, so I lived in Paris for a year. So
okay.
I'm looking forward to delving back into kind of my year abroad. So yeah, it's I need to kind of get back into it. Like I said, I have a few notes and a little bit of an outline, but
Yeah. I got
I'm
to
looking
visit
forward to that.
Paris a few years ago for about a week or so, and it was
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
very interesting touring and seeing all the sights. Went
Did you like it?
parts of it I did, parts of it I did, and uh yeah, we won't go down that road.
Oh no.
Talking about my trip. I'll get back to you and
Oh
your writing. So I know a lot of us have favorite authors or people that we read their books and think, oh, I wish I could write like that. If I could just write a
yes.
little bit like that. So who do you admire in the writing world?
So my favorite contemporary Christian writer right now is Becky Wade.
Mm.
And I think it's because she also wrote the sister trilogy with the Bradford
Oh yeah,
sisters
yeah.
series. I don't know
They're
if you've
so.
read that one.
I've
And
read some
she's
of
also,
them.
yeah, and she also went to the same university I did. So I just felt like I connect well with her characters. I
Mhm.
think some of it takes place, or some of them, she was referencing some Dallas tea rooms that my sisters live in Dallas. And so we've gone to tea rooms down there. So I love
Okay.
her writing. I love her approach for her contemporary characters and the sisters. And I think one of them did spend like a year studying French
Oh, cool.
chocolatier in France. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love her contemporary works. And then obviously
yeah.
for favorite historical writer, it would be Louisa May Alcott for
Yep.
Little Women.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, what can readers and fans do to help support you the most?
Yeah, well, right now, if they can go to my website, it's rescotcreative.com. And I do a weekly blog, a lot of times with some kind of music topic. And right now, I'm doing a lot of releases for little musical sketches of my different characters and different Enneagram types. So this week will be on the Enneagram 5, the investigator. So my kind of Laurie character from like Little Women, I have a Laurie character.
Mhm.
His name is Eddie Carter. And so he's supposed to be like the kind of nerdy engineering guy. And so I'm releasing that this week. So yeah, if you follow my website, and then I also release them on the socials. So I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook.
Mhm.
I recently got into Twitch for live performances, so that way I can kind of perform my music for people online. And then I have a YouTube channel where I will post a lot of my videos as well. So if you like hymns, hymns are some of my favorite music to play and
Mhm.
sing. So if you want to follow me on there, um, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and I'll be
So
posting all the links in the post for all your social media and your website and YouTube. And
yes,
now people
thanks.
can subscribe to your website. Do you have like a
Yes.
newsletter list? And
Yes. So that would be also really helpful, especially if you want to know when the book is coming out. And if we have any music loving Little Women fans who are interested in being on my launch team, I am starting to send out advanced reader copies.
Okay.
So if that's something your readers are interested in, if they join my newsletter, then I'm definitely going to be asking to see who's interested in reading in advance.
Yes.
So
And when does the book come out?
I'm hoping for September 1st.
September
It's
1st.
like a fall type book. So my leading lady, Victoria, she loves the fall. So
Hmm.
I kind of wanted a fall release.
Right. And right now you have a collection of short stories available. Is that correct?
Yes, I just released those a couple of weeks ago, and they're the Chronicles of Music Majors. And so they're taking place at the same university as my novel, but they're just little snippets. Each one can be read individually. There's some seasonal themes. So there's like a Halloween one and a Valentine's one and Christmas. I love the different seasons. So
Hmm.
that's already available. The Chronicles of Music Majors on all the platforms. So
Hmm.
indie bookstores, Amazon, um, ebooks, for whether it's Kindle or Kobo and
Hmm.
Google Play.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I believe you're offering a copy of one of those books
Yes.
to one of our people who comment on this interview, right?
Yes, a paperback copy of the Chronicles of Music
All right.
Majors.
Sounds good. Well, any last words for our listeners and your readers before we sign off?
Oh, well, just thank you so much, Dina. I appreciate all that you do for the writing community. I know your posts are always so encouraging,
Oh,
and
thank
you
you.
really are a blessing to us fellow authors.
Well, we support each other, right? And
Yes,
it's a great community. The Christian writing community is amazing, and
it is.
I'm blessed to be a part of it. Well, thanks for your time, and it's been great getting to actually see you. You know,
Yes. I
kind
feel
of
like I've
face
known
to
you a couple
face.
years
I
now,
know,
but
I
yeah.
know. So it's a lot of fun getting to
Yes.
know you a little bit, and we'll be looking for your book to come out, and look forward to seeing how God uses it.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.